Welcome to Reading for Idiots. I've done a bit of a rebrand. I actually did it back in January, but things in YouTube world exist on a bit of a lag, so you're only finding out about it now. And it's because, I release my videos on a schedule just to give myself a bit of a leeway. Anyway, you've probably already noticed that I upload my reviews now every other Wednesday as opposed to every other Tuesday. And every other Wednesday, I re-upload an old review that I did, just improve the filming and editing and that sort of thing. Or on that same Wednesday, I upload a random reading related video, kind of like this one. Finally, my live stream Twitch reading videos are now on Saturdays and Sundays over the weekends. The time is still the same though, GMT +8, 4:30 p.m. This video is a bit of a departure from what I usually do, so if you like it, want to see more of it, please let me know. So without further ado, let's just dive into
5 things
I remember as a kid, people used to always say that reading is great for you because it expands your vocabulary, or it opens up your imagination, or it's just intellectually stimulating. But I wasn't really thinking about that as I began reading, as I'm reading right now. I was really doing it more for pleasure, some kind of escapism. I also like my imagination being provoked, like watching a Chris Nolan film. So I was actually really surprised to find out, well, not find out, but kind of like to discover that I learned these 5 things. I mean, if you think about it, this video did not exist until I had the idea to make this video and started making it. And now it exists and you're watching it. How cool is that? The first thing I learned from reading is that reading itself is a skill in the technical sense. You actually get better at reading. Have you ever read a book and found it difficult to understand, even though word for word, you understand what the words mean? Yeah, they're a bit awkward. Even when you look them up, it just doesn't make sense as easily as other books, because maybe that book is old, or maybe the sentences are really long and they have loads of clauses, but maybe the words are anachronistic and maybe the ideas are unfamiliar. Well, same here. But it gets easier because reading is a skill, and it gets easier really quickly too. I love to genre hop between books, and I do it a lot. I do it intentionally, and I do it drastically too. And sometimes it takes a couple of pages, maybe even a few chapters to get used to the new writing style. But what I've discovered is that the more I've read, the quicker it is for me to adapt to the new book. So yeah, don't fret. Don't get down on yourself. Don't be like, oh, I can't read this book. Just stick with it. You will get better at it. Reading is a skill, and just like any other skill, you will get better at it. And it's also a skill in that you're training yourself emotionally and mentally how to read. And that's exactly the second thing I learned. Reading is a practice. Yeah, I totally get how that sounds. But I mean it. Like meditation is a practice, or even going to the gym is a practice. Gym bros may not call going to the gym training a practice, but gym bros go to the gym how meditators meditate. They know at times they just don't want to be doing it, but they do it anyway. Kind of like being on a diet, or actually even being religious. We all feel the strength of our short-term reward circuits pulling us towards
have a cheat day, be kind to yourself.
Or tenuously linking it to religion, having doubts like stop believing I can do this, or even stop believing I should do this. But we know long-term rewards are more gratifying and ultimately a lot more fruitful in every single way. And doubts are natural, because laziness, for example, going on a diet, is basically just having a doubt that you're going to lose weight, right? Like it's just going to work, right? And it's so easy to play tricks on ourselves like,
oh my God, my blood sugar is low.
But really, I'm too tired to read. I'm too angry to read. I've got no time. I just need a moment to take a rest. I'll read after I watch one episode. Like, really? Don't buy yourself off. It's a practice. Take it seriously. And a practice is basically just training your mind, isn't it? Like, I have friends who are like, how do you have time to read? I don't have any time to read. And this may sound a bit blunt, but if you're serious about something, you just find the time. But I also get it. I really do. We're all hella busy and life is damn hard. But the thing is, for the things that are really important to us, whether it's traveling or date nights or social sports or going to the gym or meal prepping, whatever, for the things that are really important to us, we always find the time, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with not reading. But if you're talking about wanting to read and you're also always saying you don't have the time to read, but you have the time to, for example, go to the gym or whatever, maybe just get honest with yourself. Maybe you just like the idea of reading more, and that's it. And that's okay. Just be honest with it. But you also gotta know that just like starting anything new for the first time, it takes a lot of effort. It really does take something to generate the momentum and maintain it. Reading is a practice. Reddit is gonna hate me for this, but 3, you gotta finish the book, man. An argument I see against this point, usually on Reddit, goes something like, hey, it's your time, why waste it on something you don't enjoy? Just move on to something else. Which is totally legit. I just don't happen to believe that. I say, always finish a book because A, and I'm being fancy now, the argument from epistemology. A book can turn on a dime. The whole complexion of a book can change in one sentence. It can happen 3/4 of a way through a book that so far has been pedestrian, not boring enough to put down because you're getting some kind of pleasure from it. The language is beautiful and the scenery is nice, blah, 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 blah. But in one sentence, or in this particular case, in just 3 words, the complexion can turn from a pedestrian, ordinary book to a work of genius. And I'm looking at you, Elena Ferrante, my brilliant friend. B, and this is more a personal point of principle, so I'll call it the argument from principle, even though by nature it is epistemological, because you don't know you didn't like a book unless you've actually finished the book. Let's say you stop the book halfway through. All you really know is that you don't like that first half of the book, and so you put it down and you didn't give the book a chance. You didn't give it room to grow. You didn't give it the benefit of the doubt. And if you're gonna be critical about a book or even just have an opinion about a book, don't you want it to be a well-informed one and not literally a half-baked one? C, got it right. The argument from compassion, and this is related to, the argument from principle. You owe it to the author. Actually, no. You don't owe the author anything, and certainly the author is not entitled to anything from you, the reader. However, just like in point B, in a conversation, you don't just cut somebody off mid-sentence. You just let them finish, right? A lot of hard work went into that book. If you're not gonna like it, which is totally legit, you can totally not like a book. There's nothing wrong with that. Just have your opinion be well-informed. Let the author finish what they wanted to say with the book. Finish the book. D. Now this is my critique of the Reddit argument for not finishing a book, and it goes something like, hey, it's your time, don't waste your time, you can do whatever the hell you want with your time, so if you're not enjoying a book, just move on. And without getting too philosophical, broad strokes, I agree with that idea. It's your time, and you, and only you, have sovereignty over your time, and that is the basis of being a free individual. It's just that as an argument for not finishing a book because it's your time and you don't have to finish it anyway, as an argument for that, it's a little bit relativistic. And by that I mean, it's convenient, isn't it? Because what is your time? When you're at work, is that your time? Or is work something that you just have to do in order to survive. Because if it is the second thing, and one's doing it reluctantly, like one's going to work reluctantly and grumbling about it, where's the agency? Where's the responsibility for your time? Why is one not like, oh my God, work is this amazing opportunity to make ends meet? So it's kind of individualistic argument, like it's an argument that I can imagine Eric Cartman making. It's a very social media argument. If it doesn't grab my attention, it's not good. Almost as though my attention is the most important thing for me. And like, it's not my responsibility to be entertained, but the onus is on you to entertain me. And that just doesn't sit well with me. Only boring people get bored. The fourth thing I learned from reading, and this is an easy one, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the world and all of the things inside it. Like I learned, it seems like you could just send your kid to a monastery if you didn't want to take care of it in medieval Germany. And here's the thing, the really cool thing. If that fact is true, I've learned a new fact. If that fact is not true, assuming of course I've not thought of that idea before, I've learned a new idea. That idea that you can just send your kids away to a monastery because you don't want to look after it in medieval Germany did not exist until I read it in a book. How cool is that? You also learn a lot about yourself. And this is related to point 2, that reading is a practice. Like I learned that I'm very emotionally impressionable. I could be reading a book and low-key in the background, my mood will just very subtly become sadder or happier or whatever without me realizing it because of the book. So some point last year, like around August or something, I was feeling really down on the world and really down on all the people in the world. And then something clicked. I was reading The Human Stain, and what I was feeling is kind of the vibe of the book. And I was like, wait, I have felt something like this before. I remembered feeling bored while reading A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Not bored of the book, but just like bored and apathetic and just like lethargic and not wanting to do anything, including not reading the book. And then as I distinguished this feeling, what I realized was that my mood was reflecting the protagonist, Count Rostov's mood. Oh my God, the writing is so good that it's evoking a visceral reaction from me. That's incredible. So just relating it back to point 3, I think it was, finish the damn book. How do you know that whatever you're feeling is not deliberately caused by the author? Or are you even reading it in such a way openly enough to let yourself be affected by the book? And sure enough, I've noticed since those 2 books that my background mood low-key changes with each book that I'm reading. Through reading, I learned that I'm very emotionally impressionable. The final thing, and this is more for the writers out there, and admittedly, my sample size is rather small, but when it comes to writing, there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. There is only, does the audience at the time appreciate what you've written? And if they don't, that doesn't mean the book is bad. It just means that they didn't appreciate it or they didn't have the opportunity to appreciate it. Your book, your novel, your novella, your screenplay, it doesn't have to follow the 3-act structure or the 4-act structure or the Pixar story structure. It doesn't even need to obey the rules of grammar. Your characters don't need to have an arc. There doesn't need to be a heroic journey or a subplot or a secondary narrative or even a theme. Because think about it, Caveman wasn't like, I want to write story, but first, let me think of rules on how to write story. No, Caveman just wrote. In fact, Caveman didn't even write. Caveman just spoke his story. Ooga Booga just told people stories naturally. It's a very human thing to do. So the rules are just descriptive, not prescriptive. They came after stories were being told. They describe certain types of stories. They don't tell you if you want to write a story, you gotta follow these rules. And then when we developed writing, we came up with more rules like grammar, punctuation, sentences, paragraphs. I'm not saying the rules are bad. If anything, the rules are great. They describe certain elements of great stories. All I'm saying is that they're descriptive and not prescriptive. You don't need to obey them. Don't fret over it. Dracula, there is no character development. All the characters are just ideals, including Dracula himself. Blood Meridian, man, Cormac McCarthy is an award-winning baller of a writer. But in Blood Meridian, there's hardly any punctuation. 100 Years of Solitude has none of those story structure things I mentioned earlier. And Gabriel García Márquez is a Nobel Prize winning author. These are all critically acclaimed, hugely popular books that didn't follow the rules. All of this to say that there is no right way or wrong way. There is just your way. And that's it. There you have it. Those are all the things I've learned from reading. And I've only learned 5 things, and they're all there. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Otherwise,
like, share, subscribe.